everyone. Welcome to the Zone to Speak podcast. I'm your host, Juliana. Before the episode, I have got to share one of my absolute favorite ride essentials, the Cyc Plus Smart Pump. This little thing goes everywhere with me. It's compact, powerful, and honestly a game changer on the bike. I love using it mid-ride when switching between terrains. I can drop the pressure for gravel and then pump it back up when I hit the road. Super easy, super fast. And of course, it's a total lifesaver in case of a flat or any loss of air. No stress, no hand pumping. Just press the button and go. You can grab yours with 10% off using my code ZONE2SPEAK. Link and details are in the episode notes. Trust me, once you try it, you won't leave for a ride without it. Cyc Plus Smart Pump. Smart, simple, and ready for any adventure. Now, let's hear it for the episode. Today, I'm speaking with someone whose life feels like it's always on the edge of a map. Kara Folkerts. Trail running guide, full-time traveler, adventure cyclist, yoga teacher, and deeply curious soul. Over the last years, she's been living as a nomad, leading mountain running trips, guiding yoga, and setting off on her own epic bikepacking journeys. Kara's story weaves together movement, mindfulness, sustainability, and wild landscapes. She's ridden through deserts, traced ultra routes on foot, and embraced the unknown as a way of life. In this episode, we'll dive deep into her philosophy of living with curiosity, how she balances the physical demands of adventure with the mental practice of yoga, and what it means to build a life guided by community and compassion. Let's get into it. Kara, welcome to Zone to Speak. So happy to have you here.
Hey there. Thanks for having me. Excited to chat.
I saw you on Instagram and I was breathtaken by your own beauty and the beauty of your adventures. And I was like, I really would like to get her on the podcast. And then you went to Cappadocia, which is a dream destination for me. So I was just like, I don't want to miss any of this adventure. So I'm so happy you're here. You grew up in Canada, which translates into nature. Did you always feel drawn into exploration? Can you tell me a little bit how you grew up? How was your childhood? When did you realize that outside was your place?
Yeah, definitely. I grew up kind of playing team sports my whole life, basketball, volleyball, kind of doing cross country, track and field. So a lot of team sports and movement. And it was great. My dad was actually my school principal, which people always thought that would be maybe not the best thing, but he was great. He was the principal. People loved him. He was the gym teacher. He was the cross country coach.
Cool.
But the reason I'm saying that is because he had full summers off. So he would actually take us camping during the summertime. So we'd be out camping anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks every summer. So we'd go hiking, cycling, all of that. So I think from an early age, I was kind of exposed to longer trips out in the backcountry and the front country and everything, but just very much kind of the mountains and all of that. So I think that kind of set the stage for me just wanting to be outside, moving my body as much as possible from a really young age.
Wow, that must have been so cool. I love that. I'm just learning all the camping stuff now. I'm still always nervous about turning on that little gas stove to make my own food, afraid to blow up something. So how cool. So it's second nature to you.
No, absolutely.
You're also a professional trail runner and you guide, as a guide. You use that to connect with landscapes and people. How did your transition from running for yourself to guiding others through wild terrain? How was this transition? And what do you love the most about taking people into the mountains?
I think first off, I'll say I'm definitely not a professional trail runner. I'm not racing competitively or anything like that, but definitely is, I'd say, I guess my profession is for sure running and guiding and all of that. But I actually started running when I was probably about 10 years old. My dad was always a big big runner and I wanted to get out with him and just kind of be on the trails with him. I still have my first running log books from when I was 10, and it would be running like
Wow.
1.5 kilometers and stuff like that. So just little things when I was 10 years old. But yeah, then kind of started getting more into, I did a little bit of cross country, but I never liked it. Even now, I don't like road running. I just want to be out in the trails, in the mountains, all of that. And yeah, I think when I was in high school, I was just kind of looking at opportunities to be traveling and moving and kind of somehow make that my life. And I was definitely running a lot more at that time, getting into trail, a little bit of ultra running, and just was trying to find a way to make it happen. And actually went into a bachelor degree program for ecotourism and outdoor leadership, not knowing at the time that I wanted to be guiding, but just kind of yeah, slowly was looking, I think, just at different options of like just alternative ways to kind of find work. I wanted to do something movement based, but I didn't want to be working in a gym. I wanted to do something travel based, but I didn't want to work at like a hotel and kind of within the hospitality, tourism, management type side of things. So just kind
Yeah.
of somehow came across taking people on like outdoor trips and stuff like that, and started kind of deep diving into what running retreats would be. You always hear of like yoga retreats and stuff like that, but then was starting to kind of hear a little bit more about running trips. And this was 2015, 2016. So now I think there's a lot more running companies, but at the time there was really nothing. So when I did start reaching out to different companies with interest in getting involved, it was a very, very small kind of niche area, even more so than it is now, and just had the opportunity to gain some experience and kind of took it from there. And now I've been doing it on and off since 2016, full time since 2020, I would say. But I don't think I kind of realized that early on it kind of set the stage for what's now kind of blown into something a lot bigger, and now having all these kind of years of experience before it was maybe a little bit bigger with run guiding. So it's been cool to just kind of see that shift. And I really do just enjoy seeing the joy that being outside and the trails and movement have been for me, and then getting to kind of share that with other people. And especially I think for the international trips that I guide now, it's been really fun to have my own kind of passion of outdoor movement, with like big landscapes and the cultural immersion piece in that, and then getting to share that with other people.
And do you have a base? Because I know you are always on the go. You always have your own guiding trips, and then you looks like when you have time off, you're doing your own trips of bike packing, going somewhere different. Do you ever go home to Canada? Do you have a base? How does it work, and how does it feel to be just out in the world?
Yeah, that is a continual question in my own life. The last time I properly rented a place was, I think, the end of 2016. So going into my 10th year, I
Wow.
guess, or just over 9 years of not having like a proper home base. Which is funny because I feel like the life of full-time travel is very romantic to a lot of people, but I think it also is then comes with a challenge of like just always trying to figure things out. And I love it so much, but it definitely, yeah, there's, I think just constantly figuring out things. And now it's a little bit easier because I guide with one company. So I kind of have my schedule for the year ahead. Whereas before, when I did just
That's
freelance guiding,
nice.
it'd be constantly not knowing anything. And yeah, I
Yeah.
do have a couple boxes at my parents' place of just Tupperware of gear, but I don't know like how often I see them or how often I come to Canada. And yeah, I have a couple bikes in Slovenia just because I like to have my bike stuff close to Europe mostly, so that I have the ease of kind of being able to take off on bike adventures when I'm not guiding, it being a little bit closer with the guiding that I do in Africa and Europe and everything. But I definitely feel like that might be something in the works in the next little bit. But also, I love what I do so much that it also I feel like there's compromises, I guess, in both sides. There's a lot of compromises to not having a base and just constantly needing the stress of figuring things out and not having a bit more stability. But then I also know that there's compromises from having a space and not then just having the freedom to go to the same extent with the financial piece and all of that. So yeah, just constantly kind of going where the wind takes me, I guess. So
I mean, it feels super free and empowering, to just go wherever you want.
Yeah, and I do definitely think at this point, because I've been going on to my ninth or 10th year of doing this, it's almost like it's all I know at this point, where it feels easier to just kind of continue with the string of events like that I've kind of put out for myself in the years past. Whereas the thought of getting a base, I think for people would seem more calming.
I think I heard you saying in another podcast, like, there's no right way of living. The right way of living is the way that feels right to you. Um, Sometimes I wish I could just go and take my bike and start riding, but I have pets. So I'm like, okay, what would I do with my pets? Because now my child's with her dad. Um, so I'm still not free, but I also can imagine, everything's pros and cons. So if you're also, you don't have a base, then you might crave a little base, but people that have a base crave the freedom. It's a balance.
I was gonna say, I feel like it's very much kind
Yeah.
of the grass is always greener on the other side, and I do think there's so many different ways that people can live life, and I don't think there's like I was like you said that you had heard me say before that I don't think there's any one right way because I think it's really easy to romanticize like oh you're doing X Y Z, but then another person could do that exact same thing and realize that that's not actually what they want. They want more comforts, or they want to have their pet at
Yeah.
home, or all whatever it is. So I think and that's where I think just trying to find like what feels the most natural and just kind of grounding for you too, or what kind of
Yeah.
lights you up in that
Yeah.
regard.
You talked about having your bike in Slovenia. I seen some of your bikepacking trips. Can you tell me a little bit about your loop in southern Spain? And I obviously want to hear a little bit about Cappadocia, because I personally want to go, and I wonder how accessible it is on a gravel bike. I'm just going to jump in here for a quick break from the conversation because if you have been listening for a while, you know I only share brands that I actually use and love. One of these is Code Age. They make science backed supplements that really support active lifestyles. I have been taking their creatine gummies for recovery and strength, and the women's multivitamin for energy and immune health, especially during big training weeks. They have got everything from hydration to collagen and endurance blends, all top quality. You can get 10% off with code ZONE2SPEAK at codeage.com, and you will be supporting the podcast while you are at it. All right, back to the episode. If you can do a loop, or if you should just do like a base and just go different places, and how did you find everything? Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, for the Spain route, I did, I think 2 years ago. I largely just went off of the
Okay.
Badlands bike race there. So, but they've done a
Yeah.
few different iterations. So I basically was just kind of piecing together different GPX tracks based on races that they've done in the past. And then also looked at Lael's ride, one of the rallies she did there. So basically, I was just piecing together pieces on Canmute from there. And a lot of them were point to point. So I did want to loop back into Granada. So yeah, it was exceptional, like the Garraf Desert and everything. Just really, really good riding. It was nice just to do like another solo trip. It was in between a stretch of guiding in Morocco, so it kind of just felt like a easy and no brainer to jump up north into Spain from there. But it was really great time of year and everything just before it really started to get hot. Yeah, no, it was great. And it was actually my first tour in Europe as well. And I think it kind of shocked me with how accessible everything is. Even when you feel like you're so far out there, you're never far from
Yeah.
water, food, services, people, all of that. So I like that it was still, I felt out there enough that I was like camping kind of out on my own and everything. But just based on the prior, like bigger trip that I had done kind of through like East Russia and Mongolia and stuff like that, where it's like you might have like 5 days worth of food that
Wow.
you're carrying, whereas I could go to a grocery store or anything like that for food like multiple times a day in Spain if I wanted. I would definitely try to kind of avoid all the different stops and still have longer periods where I could just be riding, but it just kind of felt like a novelty to be like, oh, everything is just right here.
Yeah, it is a nice comfort. And Mongolia must have been magical. I mean, it's one of the most, like, I don't want to say deserted, but it is just so much nature that you can go a while without seeing anyone or having anything, which scares me, attracts me, but it scares me at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's such a huge landmass and just such a
Yeah.
small population too. So you would have huge stretches. But we did actually end up. This was, I think,
Wow.
7 or 8 years ago, probably 8 years ago, with an ex-partner and I. But we actually ended up spending so much more time than we thought in northern Russia. That we then had a really tight timeline to get through Mongolia before we were catching a flight in Beijing. So because of that, we had a pretty quick kind of change of route in Mongolia. So we were really hoping to go out west in the Altai Mountains, but had to cut east quite a bit quickly, or quite a bit more quickly. And I think we very much kind of romanticized the mountains that we were going to be riding through in Mongolia, only to realize the east is flat with some
Oh
of the
my
worst headwinds you will
goodness.
ever experience in your life. So I do feel like I would love to go back to Mongolia and kind of have a second shot there, just because we had. I think the experience we weren't really thinking. My partner at the time got
Oh,
salmonella poisoning, and we were like 5 days from any type of like health services for him, and he
oh
was in a
man.
bad state. And just the headwind and going through the Gobi Desert with the amount of flats that we were getting. We weren't riding tubeless at the time, which was a big mistake. But I think we had one day where we had about 16 flats
Oh my
on
gosh.
our bikes combined, just because there was these tight little
Wow.
desert thorns that like every 2 kilometers it felt
And
like
do
you
you
were getting
start
a
fixing
flat.
your
So
tubes at that time? You can't be
I
carrying
definitely would
20 tubes
love
with you.
yeah, it's no, exactly. It's yeah, there was a lot of patches involved in that day. But yeah, so I'd love to go back and get further out west. But it's just funny having, I think, that be kind of one of our first or one of my first bike packing trips ever, or
Wow.
actually the first one. Then kind of going into the concept of like riding in Europe, where there's like credit
Hmm.
card touring and this and that. I was like, oh, this is a very different experience. So I think definitely, I think, prefer to be out there a little bit more. But then when I have done more of these other rides, I'm like, oh yeah, there is still kind of like a nice piece of having a little bit more creature comfort, or being able to um, have easier access to water or anything like that. So
Yeah, yeah. It's again another pros and cons, give and take, that you have to put into consideration what you would like better. And how was Cappadocia? Was it super deserted, or it was also easy to find refuel and ride around, and the beauty of it?
yeah, so we flew into Kayseri, and so kind of like central Turkey and everything, and then just kind of started piecing together some routes. And Cappadocia, we did I guess, the eastern side of the Cappadocia Delight route on bikepacking.com, and then just continued further south into the Taurus Mountains. And I would definitely not say it's deserted. It's especially around
Yeah.
Cappadocia, where people all do the hot air balloon tours. It was
Hmm.
quite busy and touristy in that regard. The further south, you can definitely find there's some really nice gravel
Cool.
riding that you aren't really seeing anybody, which is really nice in that regard. But it was beautiful. It was actually quite funny because we were camping right where all the hot air balloons were coming
Wow.
out and everything, and just had this like beautiful kind of hillside looking down to the canyons and everything. And we were anticipating opening our tent in the morning to like see all these hot air balloons. And we opened it, and it was a cloudy day, so
Oh
there was
no.
nothing there. So we didn't see any of the hot air balloons that are famed to be there. But to be honest, it was actually quite nice in that regard, because then it did just feel like a bit more peaceful as well. And we were there kind of at the tail end, so more into the shoulder season. So it was nice to have it be a little bit less busy, I think, than it probably would be in the peak season. But really beautiful area. Dropping down further into the Taurus Mountains, had some really challenging days on the bike, just like hike
Wow.
a bike and climbing, and just I think the weather kind of getting a
Yeah.
lot colder as we were coming into
I
middle
saw
and
that.
end of October, but just a really beautiful area.
Nice. And
So Yeah, would love
Did
to
you
go
ride from
back there.
Kasseri to Cappadocia? Is it possible?
Yeah, it's funny because even on the bikepacking.com route, a lot of people will take the bus, but it's less than a day's ride. It's I think it's
Okay,
like
that's
80
very
kilometers
doable.
or something. So we just took some, yeah, and to be honest, just the kind of the fuss of like trying to figure out transportation with your bikes and everything. We just thought it would be way easier to just ride kind of to Cappadocia. So it's yeah, definitely just was kind
Cool.
of a
Yeah,
no-brainer
because
for
that's what I
us.
was thinking. I was going actually last September, but I had like big life changes, so had to cancel the trip. But I was also thinking about flying to Istanbul and then flying to Cappadocia, and then which is not so bad if you're
Mm.
just going alone. But when you're taking your bike, it starts to add up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
another thing
Yeah.
to consider.
Okay.
Yeah,
We
totally.
have to
No,
look up Kasseri
absolutely.
then. Cool.
Yeah,
And
no,
you are
definitely.
also a yoga teacher and you use a lot of mindfulness in your adventures. How does the yoga practice influence your approach to the trail running and bikepacking? How do you integrate that into your trips?
Yeah, I think if anything, like I got my first yoga teacher training in India in 2017 or 2018. Um, and I don't think I ever really, especially when I got the yoga training, didn't really have any desire to teach at the time. I think it was more just kind of seeing, I took a meditation class in university and was just kind of seeing that like slowing down my thoughts is actually a really good thing. And just was kind of serving me in certain aspects in my life during university. And I think I actually really struggled with yoga at first, mostly because coming from this background of so much movement, yoga didn't feel
Yeah.
like it was enough. I wanted to be like out running or biking or in the mountains and everything. But I do just know that kind of coming into the yoga training, then I was like, hey, this is much more for the enjoyment of the meditation part, or just maybe knowing how that had played into my life. Um, but yeah, then continued. I wasn't teaching right. Actually, no, I was teaching right away because I moved to Indonesia and then was at an eco lodge and
Wow.
teaching there for a little bit. So just kind of getting my foot in the door. Didn't think I was going to go with it long term, and had kind of done a little bit here. I was teaching at like a couple studios, but it was very kind of haphazard and still didn't know if I wanted to be doing it more fully. But again, I think it was more just like my own kind of practice and just seeing how it was benefiting my own life in terms of meditation, but then also actually starting to see that like from a running perspective, from biking and everything, just in terms of like having more mobility in my life and in my body, that it actually there was more longevity in it as well. So then in 2022, I during a winter moved to Colombia for a few months and then got my 500-hour yoga training. And
Wow.
then from there, I started offering a few different yoga retreats. So I did a yoga retreat in San Miguel de Allende in Mexico, and then another one in a small country called Dominique, which people always confuse with Dominican Republic, but it's another country in the Caribbean. Um, and those were, I think, yeah, those are the only two that I've formally kind of offered as yoga retreats. But then there have been other times where I've done a blend of trail running and yoga trips with different companies that I've worked with in the past. Um, but now, so much, I don't think I push so much of an emphasis on the trips I do now and with the company I work with at the time. But it's definitely been, I think, the one thing that I've tried to keep a little bit more consistent in my own life, just because I feel like I have so many inconsistencies in my life being on the road all the time, that just being able to kind of have, even if it's like 15 minutes on my mat a day, or especially when I'm guiding, if I can just wake up a little bit earlier and get like 30 minutes on the mat before I'm kind of on with people for the next potentially like 12 to 14 hours, it's a nice piece kind of just to, I think, keep me a little bit grounded.
No, yeah, you said a lot of things that resonate with me because I used to love hot yoga, Bikram yoga, before I was really into cycling. And because I also lived in New York City a huge portion of my life. So the winters are so hard there that I would just love going there and just feeling the heat and
Mm-hmm.
sweating. But now, well, the last decade or so, just so into the training, before I was swim, bike, and run for triathlon, and now just cycling. I need the hours, and my body is so stiff. I went to a yoga and I was just like, oh my God, this is so bad. So I'm also trying to do a little bit more yoga, but like you, I always felt like, oh, it's just so slow and it's not enough. But using that space also to slow down and quiet the mind, not just for the mobility, it's really, really good. And and if people don't have time, or if I don't have time, I always say, like, I just do a YouTube yoga for cyclists, for free. There are a bunch out there, 8-10 minutes, and it does make a huge difference.
Totally. And I think it's one of those things too. It's like, it's always the hardest to just like get on your mat or to like go do something. And then the moment you actually do it and you finish, you're like, oh, I feel 1,000 times better. And I knew that I would feel 1,000 times better, but it's just needing to actually go do it.
When I'm doing consistently, like, all the pains I had went away. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And your approach, it's really rooted in sustainability, community, and caring for the planet. What does sustainable adventure mean to you?
Yeah, I think that's something that's always been kind of at a lot of the heart of what I've done. And I think anytime I'm traveling, I think having studied ecotourism and everything, I think I just kind of have that lens of, I guess, framework when I'm traveling. I think one thing I do struggle with a little bit more now with the guiding I'm doing is I am flying more than I ever have before. And that definitely weighs on my heart. And I think that's why stuff like bike travel and even then like running on the trails and all of that and more of the human powered stuff is what I do really enjoy. And I think before I was guiding to this extent, being in places for longer term, maybe like a 3 to 6 month stretch, or piecing things together by trains or bikes or anything like that. So still trying to figure out that piece. But I do think a big part of just like ecotourism to begin with too is a lot of community involvement with the locals. And that is one thing, even though I'm traveling a lot more, all the work we do is really rooted in partnering with local communities and everything. And that has felt really special. Personally, being able to like build those bonds with the locals and create really strong relationships. Like in Morocco, I feel like I have like a whole family here with my brothers and all of that, which has been really nice. But then also just knowing that having more of an impact directly with the local economy and supporting their families, which has been really great. So I think it's hard because I think with anything, there's going to be an impact. And I definitely have dealt with for years. And I think it's an ongoing thing with having like this eco anxiety of just like the state of the planet and all of that. But I do also want to try and be mindful of like the positive sides of like what we're doing and just trying to be, I guess, like a positive voice in that regard too. Because I think it is really easy to get bogged down with news, with negativity, with like all the things that are wrong and bad, but still try and focus on the good. So yeah, I think it's an ongoing conversation and something that's always kind of in the back of my mind and like how you can do better in that regard.
Yeah, no, it's good to see. And it's something that I also try my best to do. I mean, I still think flying, if it's commercially, it's still kind of public transportation in a way. But, now being in Europe, it's just easier. I know not everybody can do, but being in Europe is so much easier just to take a train or a bus.
I think one thing I'm trying to, I've slowly been working towards as well, and I'm getting there as well, is I used to do a lot more like fly to this one country for 8 days and then go off to the next thing and everything for work. And now trying to be a bit more mindful where it's like, hey, I might fly here or work here for a month and then go off somewhere else instead of just being like these quick turnarounds and everything. So just, I think, trying to be a bit more mindful and intentional with like what that actually looks like and everything. And obviously it's not going to be perfect, but just trying to, yeah, I guess kind of have that in the back of my mind
And
as well.
as you said, like you're always, you're on location working and then you try to do your own trips. How do you build connection? And as you're constantly on the move, what role does community play in your adventures?
Yeah, that's, I think, been a piece that has been both really wonderful and also a huge challenge. I think when you're on the road and meet other people who are kind of like-minded in that regard, I think you can connect very quickly just because it's like you almost like find another kindred spirit in that regard. So I do think it can be a catalyst for this, like these really strong relationships and kind of built-in community very quickly. And I think I'm someone who really does like to cut through the bullshit and I don't like surface level conversation. So I want to get deep quickly, which I think sometimes is a bit much for people, but I do really enjoy just like open conversation, vulnerability, all of that. And I think just I always joke that like trail friends are the best friends, because I think you can take someone running on the trails and all of a sudden you know their whole life story. So I think there's something to that for sure. But and then also I think with the trips that I guide, to just feeling like I have now all these built-in families with the like every time now that I come back to Morocco or our team in Slovenia, and getting to, instead of just going like one place one and done type thing, but getting to like come back to these places has really built more depth in the community that I've built here. And then I think just being more intentional of like the friendships I do have, and being in touch with girlfriends over time, and just like even relationships. Just I think that's been a struggle in the past, and trying to find someone who kind of fits the nomadic ways. But I'm in a good space with that right now, and it's been great to find someone who I think also is in that kind of same stream of life and everything, which I think is now been an interesting thing to have like my chaos into his chaos, but it somehow has worked just because I think, again, you just meet someone who kind of like understands that side of you, because they're also having that lived experience. But yeah, I think just with like living an unconventional life, it's like just kind of being able to adapt and be flexible. But I do just think at the core of so much of it is just like leaning on people, being able to share experiences with people, and yeah, I don't know. It's just there's so much involved in it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's an instant connection when you meet people that are leading the same type of lifestyle. Because I'm sure you're meeting amazing people. Like you said, you go through this trips and you're meeting great people. They are there for this experience and you can get deep. But then there's a lot of come and go, because people go to this adventure and then they go back to their lives, and you are there, continue to hosting different groups and different people. So might be nice to have found, some other nomadics like you, and hopefully, find balance in the chaos of both lives.
No, absolutely. And I think one thing with that too is just, I think definitely having to lean on like, and this goes for community relationships and everything, but just like the impermanence of life, and that things aren't going to be forever. And I think I very much can struggle with goodbyes,
Mhm.
and I think it would be easier. But even every time I guide a trip, even if it's like a group of people that I've had for 7 days, and then it's kind of like, okay, saying goodbye, you might never see them again. And I feel like the last day of a trip, I always get very, everything just feels very bittersweet, and I'm like, I'm not ready
Oh,
to say goodbye to
yeah.
you. And then I think I just need to always just kind of remind myself, being like, hey, like this is the impermanence of life. Like it is, we had a really exceptional time together, had some really nice shared memories, but like life is going to continue moving forward. And if I just like, I can still feel sad, but not like kind of wallow in that too much, and just kind of continue moving forward. But that's where then I think needing to still find kind of those core people, whether it's been like my partner or a few different girlfriends and stuff like that, that I can just like have these long, like I'm forever a voice note person where I have a few good girlfriends that will send
Yeah.
like 20-minute voice notes to each other, or try FaceTime. And I think when I have felt burnt out traveling in the past, I think it's just been because it's really easy to just kind of be go, 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 kind of on these like solo missions, kind of off into the next thing. But then being able to lean a bit more on community and just have like those little FaceTimes with your close friends, I think has been a really, really important thing to remind me that like, oh yeah, if you're focused on like wellness and health and everything, it's like there's so many different pillars. So there's like your mental well-being, emotional well-being, physical, like what you're eating, what you're drinking, your sleep. But then also I think social
Yeah.
well-being is a really big piece of it. So making sure that you feel connected with people is a massive,
Yeah.
massive thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. There are so many pillars that we have to or should feed into it, and social is definitely one of them. I never had a nomadic lifestyle, but I lived in so many different places. So I have, my closest girlfriends are spread around the world, and we also cherish and do a lot of those long voice notes, because life is so busy as well. It's hard to get on a video chat, even though it's so easy, it's still hard to just sync
Mm-hmm.
schedules. So those audio notes are really great because sending messages is great, but the audio is just to listen to someone's voice. It just makes it a little warmer. Yeah.
Yeah,
And what's
absolutely.
next for you?
Yeah, so I just finished guiding the last month in Morocco. So just finished yesterday, which has been, I think, 23 days of guiding. So I'm ready for a little bit
Yeah.
of a break, which is great. My partner and I right now, we're just on the coast in Morocco, and we'll spend about the next 6 days here or so, just kind of hanging out, eating some good food and hanging in the sunshine and all of that. And then I fly to Mexico, yeah, in 6 days, and then I'm guiding my last trip
Nice.
of the year. So go down to Baja, have about a week there, and then I'm actually going to be back in Canada, house sitting over Christmas. So just kind of have a little reset. I think that's been something that has been hard because I don't have a home there and don't really like Canadian winters
Yes.
are cold and all of that. So I'm like, I could easily go somewhere else and all this other stuff. But I think being able to just incorporate more of these down periods where it's almost like it's just a forced rest will actually be really good. So I think the last kind of 3 weeks of December, just going to kind of be in Canada, be in Calgary, and just kind of rest and digest after a really busy year. And then looking into January, already kind of planning some solo bikepacking trips and everything in
Ooh.
Oman, and then back to Morocco in February, and then probably bikepacking here as well in the new year. And basically, I'm just consistently scheming different things, which is a slippery slope.
Very nice. I love Oman. Have you been? Oh,
No, I haven't been, but my partner's been, and just looking at different routes, and I've had a few girlfriends go to, and I'm
yeah.
really
You're
excited to get
in
out
for a
there.
treat. It's a really special country.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
awesome to
Kara,
hear.
thank you so much for sharing your nomadic heart with us today. I'm very happy you came to the podcast, and I hope to keep in touch. And if I can, maybe I'll see you in Morocco.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to help you out with coming down here. It was great to chat.
And that's all for today's episode. I want to thank the listeners for tuning in. Your support means everything. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider following, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends.